Hello, welcome to Opening Doors with Pell inside Kansas's prison education systems. My name is Samra Uskadam, and I'm the manager of external relations and strategic initiatives for the Midwestern Higher Education Compact. Before we begin, several housekeeping items. We are recording today's sessions, and we have made the slides available on our website. For any questions, we kindly ask that you place the questions in the Q&A and not the chat. Finally, at the end, we really appreciate your feedback so we can improve these webinars. We have a short survey, so that please take it so that we can make this even better in the future. Thank you. So since the reinstatement of access to Pell Grants for incarcerated students through the FAFSA Simplification Act, institutions across the country are exploring meaningful opportunities to design, launch, and scale high-quality prison education programs. As part of the Midwestern Higher Education Compact's commitment to highlighting innovative work happening through the Midwest, we are really excited to put the spotlight on one of our member states making significant strides in both prison education and workforce development through its PEP or Prison Education Program initiatives. Today, we will hear from the National Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators, better known as NASFA, to many, as well as we will also hear from two institutions in Kansas, Colby Community College and the University of St. Mary. So please help me welcome Sheila Myman, a prison education specialist from NASFA, who will then introduce our two institutional representatives, who both happen to go by the name Nicole, although it is spelled differently. So Sheila, I will turn it over to you now.
Thank you. And thank you to the Midwestern Higher Education Compact for the invitation to spend time talking to you about prison education. I am from NAFSA. My name is Sheila Myman, and NAFSA is the membership organization that represents your colleagues charged with administering Title IV aid. I am joined today by two distinguished higher education professionals who I am very grateful to. I have Nicole Nolan, the Executive Vice President of Student Affairs from Colby Community College in the northwestern part of Kansas. And directions aren't my thing. And Dr. Nicole Hess-Escalante, the Associate VP for Academics from the University of St. Mary, which is located in the northeastern section of the state, right? You get that right? We're going to spend most of our time together today talking about their school's experience with prison education. First, though, I'm going to take a few moments to make sure we're all equally grounded with some definitions. I know some of you in the audience are very experienced and knowledgeable in this topic, and others may still be exploring. When we look at the history of higher ed inside prisons and other carceral facilities, there are three basic categories of programs that have existed. There are PEPs, higher education in prison programs. They've been around consistently for decades. Regardless of federal and financial aid regulations, colleges have been teaching inside prisons. They were not required to necessarily be Title IV programs. They were not always credential issuing. They had various funding sources like philanthropy or volunteerism or school funded or student self-pay, but there's been activity inside prisons for many decades teaching higher education topics to people. And then in 2016, there was something called the Second Chance Pell Experimental Site Initiative that was initiated. It was designed as an instructive experiment. The Department of Education selected certain schools that would be allowed to offer Pell Grant eligible programs in prisons. That hadn't happened since the mid-90s. Applications were required. There were limited acceptances of colleges issued. And there were limited differences between Second Chance Pell programs and campus-based programs with respect to Title IV rules beyond Pell. There was required reporting that had to be done. And after a few years, it was deemed to be a successful experiment, and the initiative started to transition into a second phase that was intended to move towards standardization. So based on new legislation enacted in July 23, that allowed prison education to become Title IV eligible outside the bounds of an experiment. And we call this the return of Pell for prison education. And there were milestones that were issued to those who had been participating in the experiment to help them move towards a formal prison education program designation. Now, the legislation returned eligibility to people who are incarcerated to receive Title IV aid. And there's some similarities to campus-based programs and some differences. Similarity-wise, the students are still students of the college. And that, for those of you who work at college, is a very meaningful thing. They are our students in a college. And I think every program that I've seen that is highly successful keeps that as their North Star, remembering that these are our students. The accreditors and Department of Education still provide oversight for prison education programs, or PEPs, and approval for them. And Pell and other Title IV rules still apply, including things like satisfactory academic progress, lifetime eligibility limits, administrative capability requirements, eligibility calculations. Those stay the same, but there are differences with prison education. And besides the multi-step application and approval process, which many schools are going through right now, there are stricter rules to make sure that students with limited agency of their own are not taken advantage of. There's something called the best interest determination. Are these programs in the best interest of students? That's not something that gets done as formally with campus-based programs. There's an oversight entity, a new one, and that's the carceral authority that houses the students that are inside prison education programs. There are enrollment limits for schools. How much of a percentage of your student body can be in a prison education program? There is some specificity about advising requirements that have to be provided. There's a simplified cost of attendance compared to campus. You're not calculating financial aid based on things like housing, because that's not included in those students' cost of attendance. Financial aid packaging, which is how a school constructs the instruments that will be used to pay the student bill. Those are limited. They are Pell, FSEOG, Federal Work Study. They don't include things like loans, for instance. There are simpler verification requirements that are reflect more of a reality that exists in the environment the students reside. Credit balances are not permitted. Aid can't exceed the formal cost of attendance, and there are reporting requirements. So there's stuff that's different, but not everything. And that's sort of important to remember as you pursue programs like this. Now, the state of Kansas, I'm going to actually stop sharing here because I don't think we need to see the screens anymore. I want you to see the faces of my colleagues that'll be talking. The state of Kansas has had a long and exemplary history with higher ed in prison. First, I have to say I admire the strength and honesty of the relationship between participating colleges and the correctional authorities in Kansas. Continual communication between educational professionals in both the colleges and corrections have allowed some enviable progress to happen in that state. Second, Kansas has a great blend of program diversity. I see academic degrees, workforce credentials, service to students in both urban and in rural settings, a strong focus on reentry and careers, a commitment to advising, and just a really strong can-do attitude that makes Kansas shine. So today we're going to explore the implementation and operation of these programs, talk about the wins and complications and complexities, think about the business aspects of the programs, discuss some critical partnerships. And I very much appreciate the participation of these two college leaders because, again, they are very steeped in this work and have some excellent experience. So first, Nicole and Nicole, can you talk about the inception of your programs? Like, When did you begin teaching? Were you part of the Second Chance Pell experiment? How many prisons or students do you serve? What sort of credentials or course of study do you offer? What modality do you teach in? Have you applied to be a PEP yet? What made your school interested in engaging? Give us sort of the overall picture, if you would. Who wants to go first?
Go
Yeah.
ahead, Nicole.
Um, we so University of St. Mary, we have been in and out of the facilities. So we were in there in the 80s, and we were part of so we left, and then we were part of Second Chance Pell, and now, yep, we're PEP program in one of our facilities. The unique thing about our program is where we're situated in eastern Kansas. We're part of Lansing Correctional Facility, which is state. We're part of the Federal Correctional Institution, which is Leavenworth. And we're also part of disciplinary barracks on the post at Fort Leavenworth. So we're in several different prisons, and we are in different stages of, as some of you will know, that we're a first Pell or a first PEP, and then we're right now in progress to be second, and then our third one will follow quickly after that. So we've been in all of those. We are in all of those. We offer an associate's degree at the minimum security facilities on post and at the Federal Correctional Institution, and we offer a bachelor's and degree completion at the state facility and at USDB. I'm getting them all letters when you do this, right? When you're in higher education, you get used to acronyms and letters. And then we also are about to start. We're hoping right now we offer a business administration management. That's the associates is business administration, the bachelor's is management. We're potentially starting in the fall an associate's degree of human services with addictions kind of specialization. So that's what some of the students are interested there. And one of the things that as we were preparing for this, one of the things that's really nice is one of the students that started with us in the 80s is finishing with us now. So we've been in prison for quite a while, and that's kind of our program in a nutshell.
So we started at Norton Correctional Facility, which is about an hour from Colby, a little over an hour from Colby, in 2008 with adult ed. That's how we kind of started in the prison education. And in 2019, fall of 2019, we began a telecommunication network technology. We call it telecom for ease program, which was actually an AOK program. So it was never a Pell program. It is post-secondary, but it was never a Pell program. And then we applied to be part of the Second Chance Pell experiment and we were approved and we were ready to launch fall of 2020. And I don't know if anybody here is that old to remember fall of 2020, but we did push back. We took our alternative energy program there, which has both solar and wind in it. And we started that in spring of 21. And then in fall of 21, we were able to begin our welding program also at Norton. This past fall of 25, we just started a welding program at Hutchinson Correctional Facility that came up for bid and we were awarded that contract. So we are in a second prison. We are not currently PEP approved. We have hit a little bit of a snag that was maybe complicated additionally by the shutdown, but they're all written, they're all ready to go. Just as soon as we can hit submit, we will get those in there. I don't remember the rest of the part of your question, but yes, we are. We also have a minimum security in Stockton, which is about another 45 minutes from Norton. And we are launching adult ed over there, and we hope to follow that quickly with some of our alternative energy because we have a mobile lab for our solar part. So we will be adding a second PEP for that site, the East unit for that program as well. So
Great. What made your schools interested in engaging in teaching in prison?
I think there were a lot of reasons, but first and foremost was the leadership here at the college just really saw a need. And Norton is a medium minimum facility. And so our students will be released. And so I think that was a really important piece for us, was making sure that, first of all, we were reducing recidivism. I mean, we wanted to make sure, but also by offering programs that they were going out and being able to make exceptional wages with, so we've given them some really good programs and some really good opportunities. So they're able to be contributors back to their families and all of that too. But really the leadership just wanted to do it to serve. I mean, we are a community college, and what's the purpose of being a community if you're not using that part of your title?
Similarly, mission of the University of St. Mary, we're sponsored by the Sisters of Charity of Leavenworth, and servant leadership is what we do. And one of the founding pieces of the university is serving students at the fullest point of their need. And so essentially, when we see a student population that needs, we step in. And we are uniquely positioned. As I said, we've got several different types of facilities. So we're in minimum, medium, and maximum at the different locations. It's really been mission driven. And definitely recidivism is part of that push. We also, being a higher education institution, value education. We've had some students that have said, who will be residents for life, have said they're doing this so their families see them differently as a college graduate instead of what their families see them now. So all of that are our reasons.
Thank you both. When you think about the programs that you're offering inside the prisons, how are they different and how are they similar to the compatible kinds of programs that you offer to your campus students? Can you sort of give me a contrast and compare of the way you approach it on campus and off campus?
Sure. We started originally in Lansing was our first location, and it's the same Bachelor of Administration Management, same main campus, same at Lansing Correctional. And the similarities are, the classes, the accreditation, the management program has a separate IACBE accreditation, all of that, right, where we ensure that similarities are in terms of services offered to students. We do matriculation ceremonies, which a lot of universities do convocation. We additionally do a matriculation, which is a candle lighting ceremony. The first difference is on main campus, we can light fires. We have candle operated ones when we go into facilities. So you tweak what you do. Graduation ceremonies, same thing. They're at all of our facilities. I wear my regalia a lot. So I'm in lots of different ceremonies, but the similarities, the classes are offered. You just do a little bit of tweaking when you kind of rethink, well, how do we do this in the facility? Including when you have to have Excel. Do they all have computers? Okay, how do we tweak that, right? So as similar as we can make it, and then you just kind of do a few little tweaks.
Yeah, one of our big pushes here in Kansas, and for anybody that's from Kansas, they know one of the major things is that our students that are incarcerated are treated the same as our students on campus. They want it to be as like of an experience as possible. And that's our goal. I mean, we want to make sure that students are served. We have a student handbook, so we lay out our expectations and our code of conduct. And the major difference there would be that the first line in our incarcerated student handbook is any KDOC rules trump anything in this. So those come first and foremost. But that's the services as far as tutoring. We offer tutoring within our facilities. We have the financial aid. We have different, if they need student support services, TRIO, we offer those things as well. Note takers, if they have an IEP. So we're working our best to ensure that that students have the exact same experience. We even have a student advisory council within the facility. So much like student government, and I'm trying to work out how their chair of the student advisory committee, actually serves on our student government. Like if we can figure out a way to zoom in without videos, I'm working through it. I don't know if it'll happen or not, but I think it's important that we can understand that these are our students. So I think that's a huge opportunity for us. As far as programming goes, you will not see welding or telecom on our campus. Those are not programs that are offered by Colby Community College except within our facilities. The alternative energy is only offered online to our main campus students, but those that are within the facility, they get it in a face-to-face format. So
It's you mentioned I'm going to throw an extra question at you here. You mentioned the anyone in Kansas would know. Could you guys talk a little bit about the consortium before we go into anything else in Kansas that
yeah,
exists and
yeah.
how it works and how it's benefited things?
So the consortium is actually a group of colleges and KDOC, as well as KBOR members that serve together on a committee. We meet every other month. We used to meet every month, and we kind of found that we didn't have as much to discuss on a monthly basis. So we meet every other month. We have a constitution, we have bylaws, we have all the things. But that is how we work together to determine needs within facilities. If there's an additional need that can't be filled within the consortium, how are we going to get that filled? And so it really is a positive group effort to ensure that all of our students are being served.
Yes. What she said, we the nice thing about it, I think, too, is that we get to learn from each other. Once a semester, we will get to tour different facilities. So we will go into each other's facility and see how they do things, see how they, if there's anything that we can learn from each other, if there's programs that they offer their students, we can kind of pick their brains and say, oh, how did you get that started? Maybe I can do that at my facility or help my facility start that. So it's a good idea sharing, as well as Nicole mentioned, kind of a, hey, this isn't quite working. KDOC partners, is there a way you can help me navigate this? So that's kind of the big picture of how that works.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a huge advantage to both the colleges learning from each other and to students who, do you have students that move from one place to another? And just being able to have that connection already at the college level to help make
Yeah,
that
and
move more
one of the
smoothly.
really cool things that we did within the consortium, and we did this a couple years ago, was we agreed as a group that if a student had taken classes from us before, during incarceration, either way, that our coordinators or whoever's at the facility can help them fill out a form, and they can email it to our respective registrars, and we will send transcripts back to their school's registrar, the new school's registrar, at no cost to the student. So I think that's a really big partnership thing that we all worked out. And it sounds like a minor thing, going, well, why couldn't you just? But there is a lot of cost. There's a lot of time. There's a lot of different things involved, and but that's how committed every single one of our schools was to this project and to our students being successful, that we weren't going to start them even $10 in the hole on this. We wanted them to be able to move their academic records wherever they need to.
Yeah, I think that's it. You said it may not seem like a big thing. It's actually a huge thing in many states, and it's a barrier for students if that doesn't happen. So, um, where does the prison education program sit administratively at the college? Like, how do you structure this activity and the people in the structure of your college?
Sure. So at St. Mary, we have 6 divisions, and then we have kind of a prison education program division that sort of sits alongside those. The all of those folks report directly to the AVP, my role. And so we kind of we coordinate it dotted lines, I think Nicole said last time, but correct. So the courses still are housed within their divisions, though what needs to be taught, and when those things are taught are coordinated by our prison education program director. So we have meetings so that they can coordinate those conversations. Ideally, they're working together for the adjuncts, but there's also we have 3 dedicated full-time faculty that are prison education program faculty. So there's so quite a lot of coordination across the divisions, but PEP is kind of its own sort of side, kind of half division.
Yeah, so we're small. If we kind of all have dotted lines every which direction, and some of them are longer dashes than dots. Anyway, my role is I oversee the adult education and the actual prison education coordinator and the navigator within our facility. Our vice president of academic affairs oversees the faculty, but we all work together to ensure that you know that we're just making sure that the classes are on schedule and all of that. But yeah, we have full-time faculty within our facilities, all of them. So there's 4 full-time faculty and then a full-time coordinator and a full-time navigator. And then the adult ed kind of goes back and forth between campus and the facility. So, but yeah, we just kind of work together. And if there's an issue or a concern and it gets brought because it's from the classroom side, then the vice president of academic affairs and myself, we talk through it. And sometimes we'll bring in our CFO and our president because they're also involved, So I think that's we want this to be successful. And so we've just made it a mission within our admin core that whoever's there, we just take care of it. We help however we can.
I want to talk a little bit about staffing, both administrative and instructional staffing. One thing I hear sometimes from schools is, oh, I don't know how we're ever going to get people to do that work. And typically, it's not as challenging as one could think. Could you guys talk a little bit about how you recruit and how much interest level there is in both the academics and in for instruction and in administrative staff to work on this?
Yeah, we've not, I mean, it does take time. It absolutely does. And you do have to have the right fit. I don't want to say that just anybody can go in and teach within a facility because that's not true. It absolutely takes someone who's committed to it and believes in it and wants it to be as successful as your team does. So it does take time, and it is important that you find the right fit. But honestly, I tell people all the time, I think I'm safer within the facility than I am at my local Walmart. I do believe that everybody does a great job. KDOC requires a minimum 40 hours of training before you can even start. And then they do annual trainings as well. And so you get lots of training, lots of information. And we just remind everybody, you're going to be equipped. If this is the role you are in, you will be equipped and you will be equipped well.
Yep. So we have a mix of our main campus faculty who are passionate about it, and then kind of word of mouth, as she said, over time. We've recruited folks and from industry partners or from just friends of current faculty that are out in industry. That because again, management is the program, so we find folks that have kind of a passion to give back, and then also the credentials, the passion and the credentials, to teach those different subject areas. And then once those folks get passionate, then sort of they share it with their friends. Because one of the things we found is that it's a very different environment when you get in there. There's no cell phones, there's not a lot of distractions. Those students have time to read. And so it's a very much the faculty are like, I love this. This is why I got into education. These people like this stuff. And then they share it with others. But yeah, there are definitely some, it's really been hard to find an economics professor. So we're like, okay, how do we, when we're doing this, how do we find, what full-time position can we put together maybe to address some of those pain points? But there's a lot of people that want to teach leadership in a prison. We don't usually have a hard time finding someone to teach that class, but they've got to teach Englishes and maths and histories and biology. Well, we have a main campus faculty member that's really passionate, and so he's like, "Yep, I will go in every time you need, and I will teach biology." Which is its own unique challenges because you've got to have a lab component as part of that. And so you got to find the folks that are with the passion so that they're willing to kind of make those tweaks that need to happen. But once they go in there and realize that, hey, these are great students, they kind of share out and we find faculty that way.
Thank you both. Let's pivot to financial aid. First of all, do you use paper or electronic FAFSAs and why?
Yep. Paper. The facilities were set up that way when we started, and that's two of our facilities. That's all that the students have access to. So we use paper, and it's a joy sometimes. You really want to make sure that the students are correctly filling that out. So whoever from your financial aid area, we have a dedicated person that he goes into the different facilities, is kind of aware of some of the frequently messed up click buttons, or they forgot their signatures or things like that, so that they can really walk the students with through that paper process. And then, that same person double checks them so that before we mail them off, we're not mailing off ones that we know were going to come back to us because something was messed up.
We are electronic and have been since we began. So once students are selected into the program and have accepted the student spot, then our coordinator begins working with them on completing those. The students all file a FERPA very quickly, and they assist in creating an email address, like a basic Gmail account, so that we can get them started that direction. And the coordinator can look those up for them. They create a username, password, all those things, and give it to our coordinator so he can make sure they're getting their pens so they can sign electronically and do all those things. And so it's been actually a pretty smooth process. The most difficult issue for us was last fall. We had internet issues at our facility. And so it was very painful. I was concerned if we were ever going to get our FAFSAs filed, but we did. But yeah, our folks from financial aid will go up to the facility and they'll work with the coordinator and the students, and it's been a pretty seamless process. I'm happy for anybody who wants to ask questions about that to connect you with our coordinator, because he's got it down to an art.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that, within one state you've got two different models. And I know that there are sometimes complications with the electronic one, usually in the setup and getting a student started and then getting back their result to them. And there are complications with paper. Are things getting easier? Have things have earlier complications you've seen starting to resolve? What's going well? What's not going well with that?
Yeah, so I actually just got an email from our coordinator for part of his board report saying, knock on wood, everything was really seamless with the electronic FAFSAs this year. They're all filed. They're all, now we'll have some new ones starting in the spring. But he's like, fall is done. We're in a good place. And I'm like, okay, fantastic. Let's do that. So I do think that experience has taught him a lot of different tricks of the trade. Much like I think anybody working with any FAFSAs, that if you work on them a little bit more, it's oh, this makes more sense, So I do believe he's got it down, like I said, to just quite the little art up there that the students go step by step and get it done.
Yep. Experience definitely has taught, a few things to look for with those paper applications. One facility, the students can't receive their own mail. So we've got to, there's some things you've got to navigate around. And what address do they put on that paper copies? Because that's where it's going to be mailed to. Where do they live? On our main campus? Well, no, they live in yard. So you've got to work some of those things out. And as she said, the guy in our financial aid that works with our incarcerated students kind of learns the things to watch out for pretty quickly. And as he's working with the students as they're filling out, he's like, okay, no, you don't check the homeless box. Put in your correct address. And so he learns those things. I don't know if easier. I mean, and they still take time, particularly the mailed ones. You've got to give some lead time because inevitably one somehow mysteriously disappears in the mail, even though you sent it with 7 others that got processed. One of them comes back, they never received it. Okay. So you learn to prepare for some of those kinds of things and you just sort of back your timeline a little bit. Because again, the goal is to getting the students in there that want to be in those programs. And so because of we've got to do it on paper, we figure out the paper. And then you learn as you go some of the things to kind of watch for and set your timeline a little bit longer than you think and have someone in there that's pretty familiar with the whole FAFSA process.
I mean, for both of you, it really sounds like having the right people on site is three-quarters of your battle. I know programs that tend to staff somebody who's experienced and knowledgeable in things like financial aid versus sending copies of the FAFSA in, telling students to just do it and mail it, is a world of difference. And I think that probably applies for academic things too, right? If you have advising is something that is so critical in these programs because the students are separate. They are not able to get the same access to information as other students. They can't Google, how do I do this? And my guess is both of your schools work very hard to have consistent advisors. Um, it's got to make a lot of difference for you.
Yeah, we are prison education program director. As you say, that on the computer, all of our students have to fill out every semester the personal information update and registration agreement. Well, the resident students can't click those 2 buttons. So we have prison education program director and a site facilitator, and beginning of every semester, go in with those paper forms, get them to fill out those, get them back so that process has already happened. So that then the advising piece of, okay, here's where you are in your degree plan and your coursework and what needs to happen next, can be a little bit more facilitated, and there's no hold on the student's program because they were waiting on those 2 pieces of paperwork. So the advisors know, main campus advisors know those things have to happen. Prison education program advisors know those things have to happen. They just are a little bit different on the main campus versus for the Lansing and other facilities.
And Norton allows every Wednesday they get new residents on site. And so they allow us to have just a short little spiel and to provide some documentation to the new residents, letting them know what all Colby Community College has to offer, be it adult ed or any of our PEP programs. And so I think that's a great relationship, and it's a great ability for us to have to be able to show them that. But again, where ours are all terminal degrees, we don't have transfer degrees. We don't really have a whole lot of options, I guess, whenever it comes to that. Here's how the semester's structured. Now, if you have previous credit, we can work through, especially with the applied science programs and things like, oh, you already have English, fantastic. You won't have to be in class for that course or whatever. But each of our programs are actually manned by the program director because we don't offer them on our campus. So that is their immediate advisor. And then our coordinator keeps a spreadsheet of making sure everybody's in the right courses so that whenever it comes time for completion, that they're good to go.
Makes sense. From a business perspective, does Pell cover all the college cost of operating these programs? And if not, how are you resolving bill balances? And
Mm.
how does, yeah, just does Pell cover everything? And then if it doesn't, what do you do about it?
Yeah. It does not cover everything for us. However, again, I get to work with incredible people and an incredible board who all agreed that, again, we don't want students starting off once they're released in debt. And so the college actually writes those balances off so that students are not incurring any debt to complete the programs.
Similar. Pell, what they receive is what they pay, and the rest essentially is a scholarship award on our the way that we write that for the students. We because one slight difference because we're on the disciplinary barracks at Fort Leavenworth, some of those students can use VA benefits. So if they use that, again, but any difference we write off as a scholarship award. So again, part of that passion, part of that mission. Yep, we want to get you covered. It doesn't cover books. We that's part of our facilities cost, right? We pay for those books for that program. So the university essentially covers that, or tuition and Pell, right? Pell covers, right? We got books and everything for the students. So it is a little bit different financially, the way that the program is run, but if the students have Pell, we write the rest off as an award.
It's to be able to do that, to be able to zero out a bill on a consistent policy basis. Obviously, there has to be full buy-in at the executive level of the school and the board. Um, did you start out with that kind of buy-in, or did you migrate to that as you gained some maturity in the work?
Yeah, we started out. We knew, but again, we've been in there. The university. I was not in there in the 80s. The university has been in there for a while, but they kind of knew that it wasn't going to cover the whole amount, and so it just started off that way. And we have about 130 students across the three different sites now, and we have, as a comparison, we have 750 undergrad students. So it's quite a good portion of, right, in addition to those main campus students. So as we grew, we just knew that that's how that program needed to operate.
That was written into our original policies. Our original student handbook and policies had that in there that students would not leave with debt. So that's been a commitment from the get-go because the passion was there from the get-go.
Yeah, it's very impressive that your schools are so united in that approach. A question came up in one of the Q&As about, again, reiterating how many students you serve a semester. Do you have min-max requirements? How do you recruit for your programs? Um, so can you give us that size and scale thing again? How big the program is, how many students you're serving?
About 130 again at our three different sites, which is we have about 30, 50, and we're it fluctuates. Ask me next semester. The part of it, the some part-time, some full-time. It kind of depends on what the student can do. And because it's year round, we still try to get them in about 24 to 30 a year if possible. As opposed to main campus students usually try to, 9 months at a time. And so they're 9 credits to 12 credits a semester, usually. Um, but it also kind of depends on what the students are capable of, and that to your how do we recruit? In each facility, it's slightly different. At the state facility, um, part of the conversations happen when GED and there are two other universities in the facility. So when Donnelly and KCC and GED are having their conversations at those career fairs, we're there as well, having those conversations with students, or we're our site facilitator is talking to students at meal times, or some of the students have tablets, and so we can kind of run sort of advertisements, I guess, on those. And so you kind of start chatting with students, and letting them know that these options are out there. And the different options, because the KCKCC Community College offers welding, and Donnelly offers an associate's, and the University of St. Mary offers a bachelor. So you try to give them those options so that they know where they can go. Um, but yeah, usually 9 to 12 credit hours a semester.
91 is the maximum number of students that we can serve each semester. And that's based on the number of welding booths, the number of telecom kits that we have, and then our safety within our alternative energy program. So 91 is our maximum number. We do have attendance policies as well. We talk about how much it's like campus. Well, we have the same kinds of policies. So if a student gets in trouble, has to go to SEG, and they miss X number of days of class, it's really hard to catch up 2 weeks of missing welding. And so we do have those attendance requirements too. So a lot of times we don't end with a full class as much as you'd like to. Sometimes it's just not for the student, and they will opt to leave, but that doesn't happen as frequently as the other does. As far as recruitment goes, I did talk about how we are allowed at Norton to meet the residents as they come in. So I think that's pretty fantastic. We also use the tablet messaging system at both Hutch and Norton. And then I really do believe that our instructors are like celebrities, because they can't hardly walk around without people hollering at them, and they know who they are, and they'll ask them questions. What does it look like for next semester? So I think they get out and about a lot. And so people get to figure out they want to be part of it.
Sounds good. Can we talk a little bit about partnerships? What organizations on campus provide support for the PEP? And what about external organizations that you have relationships with?
I said, I think one of our biggest partners here on campus is our adult ed program. They're willing to assist with resume writing and mock interviews and different things that direction, career development type things, in addition to obviously KDOC being a fantastic partner for us. They have all those same services. So, they do it at a much more amped up level to ensure those things, but we try to have them leave the class having some of those things already in place. So I think that's one of our biggest partners. But again, the admin team here, they work very close to make sure that, you need a social behavioral science. I'm going to get you an instructor who's going to make sure that they are a good fit, that their program, their class is exactly what your students need. So I think that's a huge partner. Now, we do have several industry partners outside, and our applied science programs, they actually, and our certificate programs have an advisory board. So we have outside partners, industry, that serve on those boards as well, to make sure that we're teaching the most up-to-date, relevant materials. I can't speak welding, but I'm assuming that our partners in we have a couple industry partners within the Hayes area, and they serve on these boards. And if they're needing them to be better at, I don't know, something over something else, I'm confident that they're telling them that, because we're looking at, we get new equipment, or we get different the little prongs that they weld. I don't know how they do all that, but they'll tell them they need to be better at this. And so I think that's a huge advantage for us too. And then of course they want to hire our students upon release. And that's such a great thing to be able to say they want you.
As I mentioned before, so in Lansing, there are KCKCC and Donnelly College, so internal partners, but as we mentioned, kind of part of the consortium, we agreed some of those transfer credits, but then we have special agreements within the facility as well. At the Fort Leavenworth, there are other institutions there as well that we have that students can transfer credits in between. KCKCC there as well, but different people. There's different KCKs folks we work with at the different facilities. But even within the facilities, it's really you've got to think of the education folks that are hired by the facility as partners. You've got to really work with them, have strong conversations with them about what those students need, because they're going to be able to facilitate your conversations with students, facilitate classroom space, help you give you the dates for when the trainings need to happen for your adjuncts, right? You've got to have strong
Hmm.
partnerships with some of the folks in the facility, the education employees, and so that's a big partnership there. In addition, yeah, she mentioned KDOC, and those are the main kind of external, I guess, partners. But then on main campus, the student success, student advising, FAFSA, registrar's office, we're all in and out of the facilities as needed. So when a student needs tutoring, yep, we work on that. If a student's in trouble, the same reporting system is going to be right filtered to the same student affairs folks and say, oh, okay, how do we, is this something that we need to handle? Has the facility already handled it? So any kind of services that are needed, partnerships that have to happen, we make it work. I think Nicole said that as well. We try to make whatever that the student needs possible for them, internal partners or external partners.
Sounds good. In the questions, we have one that's sort of a detailed set of questions and one that's more global. So I'm going to start with the detailed. Um, how do you handle students' dependency statuses? Especially, if they have a spouse or they're under the age where their parents need to sign, and do you have difficulty getting the families to participate in signing on the FAFSA? How do you handle that as a school? Um,
Yeah, so we do have a few of those instances, but those are pretty few and far between for us. I don't know that we have a lot that would require that additional or where they'd filed jointly. But I do know that our financial aid office, they send letters, they make phone calls, to those people. And then if they state they're not willing to do some of these things or whatever, there is professional judgment. And so they will utilize that if they have to. But if they filed jointly, then we again, that's one of those where if they can't get aid, then we end up writing that off.
I feel like I should say ditto to that one. So yeah, we don't have a lot of dependents, and there's only been one that his family essentially said no. So we had to figure out how to, and then you have to be respectful of the students who their families say no for a specific reason, right? So you know that they're not going to be asking. And so that professional judgment, as she mentioned, you kind of have to navigate some of that a little bit differently than maybe main campus students, but um, you again, that FAFSA person is really important to know, okay, here's going to be the sticking points. How does the facility allow the communication with the families, or are we going to be the ones that are having those phone calls and, hey, here's a FERPA. We need to make sure that we can have those conversations.
okay. There's sort of a second part to that question about verification and frequency and things like that. I may sort of answer that one because nationally, at the beginning of the experiment, these students were selected at a much higher rate, and the department, that was one of the learnings, because that's part of an experiment, is learning how to run these programs. The department was very helpful in reducing that to a manageable level. And verification, probably just as a percentage of student bodies, is a little less inside simply because there are fewer things to verify. You're not verifying student income and things like this. You're really just doing identity verification. So it has become a much less significant part of the financial aid job uh, inside inside prisons. Um, all right, so global here. How does the state of Kansas support your work? Do they offer incentives to do this work? Is it largely on the onus of the universities to launch these programs?
Well, KDOC is part of that consortium. So they are very much supportive at that governmental level. They do report to the governor. That the education folks. And so they are our coordinators, co-facilitators in the facilities. And really once a end of every semester, so in addition to those meetings that we have as a big KCCHE, each semester we have individual meetings with our KDOC partners within our facility, and then Macy and Jennifer that are at the main site. And we have kind of, okay, specific to the facility conversations, what do we need, what's not working, what is working, so that we can because we are not part of the correctional facility. We're not employees of the correctional facility. So we've got to have kind of partners to help us have those meetings, have those conversations, know what's happening, know when training are. So they really do help kind of facilitate some of those conversations and maybe mitigate some pain points sometimes.
I think it's my turn to say ditto. Yes, they are fantastic partners to us, and they are right there walking alongside us, and I can't speak for Nicole or any of the other Kansas folks, but I'm confident that if you call our education director or associate director any day and you say, I need a call because I have to have help with X, Y, and Z, they're like, let's make it happen. Because they want us in the facilities. They want us to be successful, and so we're constantly, hey, I've got this issue or this came up, and so I told you we had issues with internet, and they were willing to help walk us through getting our internet issues resolved because it's important, and so yeah, KDOC has been fantastic partners in all of this.
They also, to the previous question, will bring in, if needed, folks to help get driver's license, folks to help get some of that paperwork for verification. So they will help with some of that as well, if a site has a big enough need for that.
And I would add to our partner list that I forgot is KBOR. I mentioned them earlier, Kansas Board of Regents, but that's who houses like GED transcripts. So if our students have GEDs, we can reach out to KBOR as well so that we can prove they have that diploma, that transcript for filing their FAFSAs as well. So they assist us with those things too. So.
Oh, Sheila, you're muted.
Sorry about that. And I know from previous meetings and sessions that you've got a lot of support clear up to the governor's office for this work in Kansas. So I think we are about at time. Thank you both so much. And Samra, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Yeah, well, I want to say thank you again to Sheila, Nicole, and Nicole. This has been a great conversation, and I think a ton of questions. I saw the Q&A was very active, and I know that I learned a lot from the conversation as well, even from just the community that you bring in these spaces, but also even the differences in how you fill out the FAFSA and what the implications are for that. So again, as a housekeeping matter, please complete our survey. It's very quick, but it helps us make sure that we're offering relevant content. The link is in the chat. We've already posted the presentation and we'll post the recording of today's event on our website as soon as it is available. We hope you'll keep informed with MEC by subscribing to our website. We have a monthly MEC newsletter, and then there are other topical areas for newsletters you may be interested in. But thank you again, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.